I'd like to call the regular council meeting for the town of Bay-Westfield on Monday, May 8th, 2023 to order at 7 o'clock p.m. We respectfully acknowledge that Bay-Westfield exists on the traditional Woolstook land. The lands of Wabanaki people are recognized in a series of peace and friendship treaties to establish an ongoing relationship of peace, friendship, and mutual respect between equal nations. The river that runs by our town is known as Woolstook, along which live Woolstookwe, the people of the beautiful and bountiful river. We, the staff and elected representatives, pay respect to the elders, past and present, and descendants of this land. Welcome everybody to our meeting, both online and in person. We have some people in the audience today, so it's lovely to see that. Welcome. I'm glad you're here to join us. Move on to record of attendance. We have everyone here with the exception of Councillor McIntosh Lawrence, and we have Councillor Day attending virtually. We'll now move on to item 5, agenda approval. The motion is that the Council of the Town of Bay-Westfield approve the agenda of May 8th, 2023 as presented. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Councillor Bailman. Do I have a second? Thank you, Councillor Balcom. Any questions or comments on the motion? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Thank you. Item 6, disclosure of conflict of interest. Councillor McIntosh Lawrence has a conflict of interest on item 11C, but she is absent today. Item 7, public hearings, presentations, delegations, petitions. 7A, Dillon Consulting, Municipal Plan and Zoning Bylaws, and we have Jennifer Brown here with us to present. Jennifer, thank you for joining us here today. We look forward to hearing how the process is playing out.
Great, thank you very much, Your Worship. I'm just going to scan us up to the top here. Looking here just a second. Oh, we're at the bottom. All right, one second. Here we go. Okay, so as Your Worship noted, I'm here to kind of give you a quick update on where we are in the municipal plan and zoning bylaw amendment process. This evening kind of marks another kind of milestone, big milestone in this project. So you've gone through, we're sitting in phase 3. We are comfortably in the zoning bylaw amendment referral phase. What we're asking this evening is council refer the zoning bylaw to PAC and set the public hearing date. This also marks the end of the 30-day comment period for the municipal plan amendments, which ran from March 28th to April 27th. We're also asking that those amendments be referred to PAC and a public hearing date set for those as well. So just to recap the municipal plan amendment legislative process, we've gone through several steps. Where we're sitting right now is the review of any feedback received. My understanding is that there has been no feedback received on the municipal plan amendments. We're asking, like I said, to set that public hearing date, refer to PAC. So we're right at the beginning of the zoning bylaw amendment portion of this project. We're looking at tentative dates of PAC being June 5th and then the public hearing being June 12th. So I'm going to go through the amendments very high level very quickly. There are details in the council package, and the council package, I should say, the amendments that are in the council package will be available for public review essentially from here on out. So, first and second amendments are to repeal and replace Schedule A and Schedule B of your zoning bylaw. That's your zoning map, and then the flood overlay map. To give you a quick snapshot, this is your Schedule A zoning map draft. This essentially incorporates the entirety of the new municipal boundary. You've got both wards in there and a slew of zones. Those zones are not changing from what you currently have in your existing bylaw. They're just applied more broadly. I've zoomed in a bit here for your flood overlay map, your flood overlay zone map. What this essentially allows for is that any area within the flood extent has additional criteria put upon it for new developments. What this generally means, very high level, is that there's a minimum elevation requirement for any habitable space. So if you wanna build a house and you're in this particular area that's identified by essentially the 1 in 100 year floodplain, the flood extent of, which aligns with the flood extent of 2018. If you want to build in that area, you're required, in addition to that WAWA permit requirement, you're required to build at that 7.4 meter elevation. The third amendment you're gonna see is an agricultural use definition. There's an update to point towards the town's animal control bylaw. We also have additional definitions to identify main or principal use. There's also a set of amendments to decouple really the cannabis and liquor sales uses. So we've had some inquiries around cannabis sales. We wanna make sure that the town is prepared to reply to those once the applications hit. So what this essentially means is we're deleting that section 5.8 in your existing bylaw that talks about separation distances, use requirements, and section 59 type agreements. And we're leaning back on the province to say, you're the ones who regulate this. We need proof from the applicant that they are going to adhere to the regulations that are established through the legislation. Liquor sales becomes incidental to main uses in most cases, with the exception obviously of a provincially regulated liquor establishment, meaning a liquor store. Any questions about those first sets of amendments?
Just wanted to ask about dog breeders.
Mhm.
And they're regulated by the province. They aren't really for us, but back in 2010, the province changed the regulations so that they had to get zoning permission from a municipality. So I just wondered, we've been pretty quiet on that in our last plan, and just wondered, looking at amending this going forward, that we would permit breeders to be able to breed, but I'm concerned that we don't want them in urban built-up area. So I just wondered if you could speak to that for a moment.
Sure. So in your existing bylaw, it's likely that should an application come through for a breeder, we would align it with the kennel definition or animal, I think pet use.
Well, sorry.
Sorry.
No, I was just gonna say, Jennifer, that the animal control bylaw is about domestic pets.
Yes.
The provincial regulation is about more the commercialized.
Yes, more intensive uses. So in saying that, just to kind of maybe expand on what I was saying, so if we do have an application come through for a breeder, we would look at it as, we would look at aligning with your existing definitions in your bylaw. We're not proposing any updates. If we've identified it being a potential issue, we should look at that, and we should look at that, bring it back to PAC. I'd recommend just that. So where we've not put any energy towards looking at breeder versus kennel versus what you have existing, and then comparing it to your upcoming animal bylaw that's being proposed, I believe, this evening. We need to make sure the zoning bylaw and the animal bylaw have synergies, they're talking to each other so that your enforcement folks understand the umbrella under which they need to provide that enforcement. I'd recommend action moving forward that council provides some sort of direction to the development officer or staff in general, that we look at that kennel/breeder use and provide some sort of some sort of framework that PAC review on your behalf and provide a recommendation to you moving forward.
So Jennifer, you're basically recommending that we leave that as a conditional use that would have to go to PAC to move forward?
I think so. What I'm asking this evening though is that you provide me with direction to go look at it in a bit more detail. I think that with the updates to the animal bylaw, we need a bit of lead up to look at it in more detail. I think the issue being that there's several different uses being discussed here. There's also a bylaw that provides two separate uses that we need to drill down upon. So kennel and then a pet establishment, those are two separate things. Kennel is going to be similar or compatible under the Community Planning Act. We would define it as similar or compatible use. We would need to drill down on what that looks like framework-wise.
So, Your Worship, just for council's background information, Jennifer, if you don't mind. According to the regulations, all breeders, pet establishments, which would be a kennel and a breeder in this context, are to be registered with the New Brunswick SPCA. As of this afternoon, Ward 2 has 10 breeders, only one of which is registered with the NBSPCA. Ward 1 has 4 known breeders in Ward 1, and none of them are registered. So it's important that council provide Jennifer and administration, Jennifer for our zoning bylaw and municipal plan, and for our animal control bylaw. We need clear direction regarding what we want regarding breeders. Or pet establishments, in this term, we're looking at a kennel or a breeder. And I would just want to encourage council that these types of establishments not be permitted in a dense area. You know, rural residential is currently where kennels are permitted. However, when you look at our rural residential, you think of McLean, Mallard. I'm sorry, David, what's the name of that road just north of the RCMP detachment, the subdivision up at the top? Sunnyside? Yeah, Sunnyside, Salmon Rock, Sunset Valley, and the rest of Britain Road are really areas which conditional at best, but then the question is how do we integrate a potentially smelly, noisy establishment in a residential neighborhood? So even though we have lots of rural residential, we do have, I think, 5 or 6 pockets that do not really fit rural residential. So that's where this is coming from, this question tonight, Council. Jennifer, is that clear?
I think so, and I do, just to add on to that, I think that understanding that this is we can't apply the bylaws retroactively. We have the animal control bylaw, or animal bylaw?
It's currently the dog control
Okay.
bylaw, but it's being reframed as animal control
Okay.
so that it's in full alignment with the zoning bylaw.
Exactly, okay, so the animal control bylaw becomes essentially your enforcement tool. But when a new application comes in, or somebody who is seeking a new license comes through the door, it's the zoning confirmation letter that is required by the SPCA. So we do need to make sure that there's some sort of something to hang hats on here in both bylaws.
So, Your Worship, if I can just elaborate on what Jennifer said. So currently we have 9 in Ward 2, 4 in Ward 1 that are not registered. If they go to register after this plan is approved, and I think, David, we're looking at the end of June, right? July, we'll be forced to say no, they're not allowed, even though I understand these non-registered breeders have been in operation for some time. So we do have a bit of an issue arising. Sorry, Your Worship.
So just before Jennifer moves on, I just want to make sure that the council, is in consensus with giving Jennifer the direction to look at that in more detail. Yes.
Okay.
Is that clear enough for you?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. So moving forward, what will happen is I'll bring a revised set of text amendments to PAC, which will include this dog breeder kennel issue.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving on to our next set of amendments. So again, with the animal control bylaw, we're looking at keeping of chickens being deleted from the zoning bylaw in order to provide direction through the animal control bylaw. Next up, conversion. So this is kind of a helpful one. We're looking at removing additional parking requirements for change of use. So if the building is there and somebody comes in with an adaptive reuse, we're not going to require that adaptive reuse to have any more parking than is already required on the lot. So this could be quite impactful along River Valley Drive in particular. You've got a lot of parking established there already. so your existing bylaw requires you to add up all the parking requirements that are in the building, and that's your number. We're saying, should the use change, the parking that's established is the parking that's there. Animals in residential zones, again, we're moving that to the animal control bylaw. Any questions on this set?
For amendment number 7, with the parking requirements, can you give me a real world example where
Sure.
that might apply?
Sure, so if you're looking at, the easiest thing to think of is a church or church-related building. So if you have church outbuildings that are being converted into residential or office space, a church parking requirement may be attached to floor space, where a residential requirement is usually attached to dwelling unit. So if you have 60 parking spots, but the bylaw may require something, maybe residential isn't the best one because, best example, let me roll back. So let's say we're converting this to a mixed use development. So we're saying that, okay, we're gonna have, on the ground floor of this church outbuilding, we're gonna have offices, and then on the upper floor, we're gonna have 10 units. And that there's 40 parking spaces already there. We're not gonna require more parking. We're gonna say, even if the bylaw, when we do the math, says you need 45, we're gonna say 40 is enough, you've got 10 units above, that's 1 parking spot for each. We're gonna say that there's 2 offices, well that's, maybe the floor area requires them to have 20 each. So we're saying, well that's overparked by the standard, so the 42 just remains the same. You're gonna see it up in, for example, like where the Sobeys and the Mortons and all of that area is. As tenants move in and out of that building, we shouldn't be requiring them to consider more parking. There's sufficient parking there. Along River Valley Drive, you'll see some turnover in some of these places that might have been offices or doctor's offices or something along those lines. We're not gonna require them to go through, land acquirement or assembly to get more parking. We're saying what's there is there.
Right, so it's removal of a barrier.
Exactly, yeah. It's one of those it's a baseline thing we can do to remove unnecessary red tape that some applicants may run into, especially in this adaptive reuse type of development. I told on myself though, when I spoke of the residential conversion, that's the only time that we will run into this, but it's a negotiation then rather than a set standard, so.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Sorry, Jennifer.
Yes.
Your worship. Just wanted the council know that, I don't remember how long ago we talked, Jennifer, but one of the goals was to try and reduce barriers to growth here in the town. And so Jennifer has consistently been trying to address that.
Next set, so here we're looking at, again, this other, as your CAO just mentioned, barrier to growth. This is an easy low-hanging fruit amendment. So we went from garden and secondary suites being conditionally permitted to permitted in both the 1-unit residential zone and the 1 and 2-unit residential zone. We also pushed those home occupations into permitted rather than conditional uses. In both the 1 and 2-unit residential zone as well as the multiple residential zone. This means that home occupations and garden suites and secondary suites are permitted blanket in every residential zone. Any questions here?
That's including garden homes also, or?
Yep. Yes, so garden suites, so there are regulations or standards that align with your garden suite. So for example, if you wanted to build one, garden suite is a separate unit from the main dwelling. It has to be behind the building line, so it has to be in your side or rear yard. It has to look similar to your main dwelling, so it has to look in a similar style. So if your house is sided, your garden suite should be sided and has to be serviced from the main connection. So they can't have, in theory, you couldn't have separate services. The reason we do that is to prevent them being subdivided as flag lots as their own dwelling. But for the most part, that seems to not be an issue throughout New Brunswick at the moment. The other set here is through the commercial zone. So central commercial zone, permit cannabis retail. in that central commercial zone. That was formerly a conditional use, we've moved that up to permitted use. Highway commercial zone, we've allowed that same use being permitted. We're also increasing, your development officer, David Taylor, identified some issues with height. This again speaks to that red tape reduction around increasing the max height from 9 to 11 meters in the highway commercial zone, doing the same in the mixed use zone. That's just to provide consistency. We also have a height increase, well, I should say a height prescription in the light industrial zone. It was formerly unprescribed, so we're allowing for 11 meters of height in that zone. Providing additional clarity on that institutional zone to go from a max height that ranged from 11 to 15 to allow for an 11 meter height with the spires, belfries, etc. being exempted. They're already exempted. We identified a bit of a conflict in your zoning bylaw where there were two somewhat different guidelines, so we eliminated one to provide for the more clear and permissive option. So before I move on to process, are there any questions on the amendments?
Yeah, just me, if you could just explain where the numbers came from, why
Sure.
you did the 11, the 9, 11, the 15?
So some of the heights, so your max 11 is prescribed by essentially what your fire department can service. The 9 though provides for a transition from your lower density to more dense housing. So it provides for a gradual jump rather than, I know it's just the 2 meters, it doesn't feel like a lot, but it could be really almost another half story. So the 9 meters allows for that incremental increase, the 11 allows for more intensive development within the realm of what you can provide service for.
So I follow up if that's okay. So say we end up with a mutual aid agreement with
Yeah.
City of St. John for a ladder truck. Are we limiting ourselves here by putting a maximum of 11 meters?
Not necessarily, because there is a process. So for example, if that mutual aid agreement comes through, my recommendation would be initiate a review of heights through a series of amendments. So we would just amend the bylaw in specific zones that would be reasonable to allow for that extra height. You don't want that blanket everywhere. You're especially with a mutual service agreement, you're looking at where they can access the quickest. So you would be looking at where you're positioned for density anyhow. It would be a series of amendments. In the short term though, should that come through, it would be a simple variance to PAC, depending on how much height above that 11 meters, say, if you had an application for 12 meters. That's something the development officer could approve, depending on context of course, but they have the authority to approve that in-house. It wouldn't require additional applications beyond the development and building permit.
Thank you.
No problem. Just moving on to process really quickly, this hasn't changed from when I was first here, with the exception of the PAC date. PAC, obviously we wanted to bring these amendments to you before we brought them to PAC, so we're coming back here on June 12th, but in between now and then we'll be at PAC with this package of information. So we're looking at June 12th being a public hearing, and all fingers crossed and toes crossed, we'll be back that same night for first and second reading, assuming there's no issues. If there are, we push the first and second reading to the next meeting, subsequently third reading. So however those dominoes fall, they'll fall. It just depends on how smoothly this process moves going forward. So we'll work with staff, next steps, working with staff to prepare for PAC, prepare for public hearing. Just a reminder, here tonight we had a great example of identification of an issue that needs to be further addressed. We've got several opportunities to do that before third reading. We essentially just need to make sure that any changes you're requesting, we just record them as part of your motion, but you've got up until third reading to make changes, so we've got time. I mention that because the public is encouraged to request a review of the documents. From here on out, those are available for public inspection during office hours or open hours here at the town hall, and folks can request a copy of the amendment package at any point. PAC is also a public meeting. If folks wanna learn more, we'll do a bit of a deeper dive on what these amendments look like and the impact kind of going forward. So I mentioned this kind of third reading, this space to allow for the public to come through, take a look, see how it's gonna impact or not impact their day-to-day, and we're able to kind of adjust and adapt depending on public review and comment. That's it for me this evening, but very happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Jennifer. Council, do we have any other questions for Jennifer while we have her? That was great, and as you, I appreciate your, your commitment to reducing those barriers for growth while still maintaining the public interest. So I really appreciate that. I know it's a heavy lift. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And we'll see you again soon, I'm
Great,
sure.
thanks.
So the motion is that the Council of the Town of Grand Bay-Westfield receive and file the information as presented. Do I have a motion? Thank you, Councillor Bellmans. Do I have a second? Thank you, Deputy Mayor Toole. Any questions or comments on the motion? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion is carried, thank you. 7B, Partners Assisting Local Schools, also known as PALS. We have Deborah Fisher with us here today, and a warm welcome to Deborah. We're looking forward to hearing about PALS and how, we individually can help support the program and spread the word to the community as well. So the floor is yours.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you to Council. And my apologies for not making it the last time. Amanda was very gracious in making time for me to come again, so that was wonderful. And I have my cheering section with me. Corey's here and is a big supporter of PALS, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a little bit. So just to give you a bit of a background, first of all, my background, I'm a retired teacher. I've been working with the PALS program now for 23 years. It was supposed to be 1 year, and it's really grown since. And to give you a little bit of background, because I think that's important, when PALS first began, which was in 2000, it was started with the local school district and Mr. J.K. Irving, and they were looking at, having been part of, Mr. Irving having been part of BCAPI, which is the Business Community Anti-Poverty Initiative. They were looking at poverty in the city of St. John specifically, and especially in vulnerable neighborhoods. And one of the things that came out of a report that was done by Deloitte & Touche at the time, it said, if you're going to make a difference, work with children. We could have saved them a lot of money, could have just come to us any school and we could have told you the same, exact same thing. So that was why it was started. Mr. Irving said, we've got 300 Union Street here, we have 600 people here, that we can provide their time and talent to help out at one of those schools that serve those neighborhoods, which is Prince Charles right across the way. And that was where it had its beginning. But right from the get-go, the idea was not just to be at Prince Charles School, but it was to serve 7 schools and provide volunteers, partners, assistance in many different ways. One of the things, in most cases, what we do with PALS, is we're not looking for money. Now that's not quite the truth when we talk to the Derby, talk about the Derby. But in most cases what we're looking for is people. And we're looking for their time, we're looking for their commitment to children, providing another positive adult model, role model for children. So that's kind of the background of what we're looking for. The partnerships, however, take many, many forms. We spread very quickly. After the first 5 years, we spread quickly to 7 schools that serve those priority neighborhoods. And then the other schools, like Westfield, like Englewood, said, and many others, because we're now at 23 schools in the St. John area, Greater St. John, they said, we understand the 7 schools. We all get that, when you've got 50% to 75, 80% of children living in poverty. It is a different kettle of fish. However, we serve pockets of poverty in all places, and we could use some help or some initiatives that would give us a hand and a hand up for the children. So that's when we started spreading out to the other schools. Now, in most cases, when we were establishing partners, And I should say that we went from one partner, one school, and we're now at 23 partners and about 23 schools and about 150 partners in Greater St. John. And we're elsewhere in the district, and now we have a PALS initiative starting through the Rotary Club in Halifax. They're championing it. So it's really nice to see that. It's nice to see another group take it on, and it's amazing what's happening down there. So it's spread, and we have these partners. Well, when I go to see partners, I tell them about the program, of course. I tell them the ways that they could be involved. Most of them are very happy that I'm not coming with my hand out looking for that, but looking for their people. And that's more palatable, of course. It is something that the schools are identifying, because in many, many cases, the schools are not able to get parental involvement to the extent that they would like, because in most cases, or many or most cases, a single parent family or two parent working families, they don't have the opportunity to volunteer their schools. So, like I say, we spread to the different schools, and again, our first ask is always for people power. Those folks who can help, come in and help. And when we look at volunteers, we're looking at from the beginning of the day to the end of the day. Weekends, when we talk about, back to the Derby again, when we talk about the Derby and some other events, there's all sorts of ways to be involved. Probably, starting at the first of the day, breakfast programs. Breakfast programs, best way to start your day, let me tell you, because I'm doing breakfast right now at Prince Charles School, and my Tuesday mornings are a great way to start the day. You go in and you've got those little faces, and you've got little Johnny stories to tell when you get back to work. Starting there, helping out in classrooms, we have things like visiting readers, which is done virtually from your desk, where you actually will read to a class. It could be a kindergarten class, and you read them once a week for the whole year. The schools love it. It started because of COVID, because everybody used to go into the school, but we found that we really had a cohort of volunteers who said, gosh, I can't leave my desk. It's just, it doesn't work well for my situation. But to be able to do it virtually is wonderful. So now we're kind of coming up with hybrid models like everybody else is within business, within, all sorts of areas of society. So we have virtual ways of helping. We have folks who help out as coaches, help out with extracurricular, help out with enrichment, huge one. And in fact, one of the schools out here, River Valley Middle, they have and most of you probably are aware of this, they have an enrichment module that happens during the year. And they are always looking for people. So it's something to keep in the back of your mind for next year. And if I'm permitted, Your Worship, I would like to send out, because we're getting to the end of the school year, I can send a list of needs for the first of the school year, which would give people a chance, and not just for you folks, but perhaps aunts, uncles, brothers, sisters, grandmothers, grandfathers, anyone who can lend a hand is welcome. Any volunteers, of course, go through clearance, as you would expect. They are given police clearance. They are given Policy 701, which is a policy that you have to take online. And it's a provincial policy with the Department of Education. Policy 701 and vulnerable sector clearance. And I always tell any potential volunteers that vulnerable sector, so that they're not surprised or, side smacked or something, you can actually be, you could actually have a chance that you would have to be fingerprinted. If you happen to be of the same gender and the same birth date as someone who is offended across Canada, that will flag you, and they take fingerprints and they say, no, that's not them, it's somebody up in Ontario or whatever. So, and that's important, and you'll remember that from when the hockey coach up in Ontario was sentenced, served time, changed name, moved, and reoffended. So it was very important to establish that. So those are the types of clearances you go through. One of the programs that we support very strongly is Big Brothers Big Sisters, the in-school mentoring program. And it's one where you're actually matched with a child, same child for a year. We have people who stay with that child 6, 7 years, start in grade 2, grade 1, and go right through to grade 8. We follow them from the elementary schools right up to the middle school when they go on to high school. We've had those mentors as well stay in contact during the high school years. Important time. It's getting to be an even more difficult time for children as they're getting into those middle and high school years. So that's a program we support, and that program is one that Big Brothers, it's one that the schools decide to have at their school. Big Brothers Big Sisters actually does the facilitation of it, and we help them find the volunteers to do that. I'm in the midst right now of working with 10 people who are going to become mentors, and we're very, very excited. Always looking for male volunteers for the in-school mentoring program, because oftentimes we'll have students who don't necessarily have a positive male role model. In any case, all students, all people can use a positive role model in their life. So it's something that's near and dear to our hearts, promoting that and supporting that. Just to let you know, it's 1 hour a week, it's on school property, it's not outside of school time, and it's not weekends, like the traditional Big Brothers Big Sisters. So that gives you one side of it. And how am I doing for time, Amanda?
Is that 10 minutes in?
Oh, I'm at that 10. I will wind it up quickly. So one of our I'm a teacher, I could talk forever. One of our initiatives that we do, which is very exciting, is the New Brunswick Soapbox Derby. And we're doing it again this year. And if I look a little bit dusty, it's because we've been moving derby cars all day. And they were going out to the schools, and that's exciting. We have 2 schools in this community that take part. We're hoping that the 3rd one will. We've been having talks about that. And you folks have been very, very generous with the help of Corey in supporting the 2 cars for the 2 schools. And the kids have an amazing, amazing time. And it seems to me, was it last? Yes, it was in 2019, which was our last derby. Westfield ended up winning, and they ended up going to Akron, Ohio, which is where the All-American Soapbox Derby happens. And in Canada, we talk Soapbox Derby, and yeah, that's nice. In the States, they're mad about it. They're absolutely mad about it. So I had to go up to Holton to pick up the Westfield car a couple of weeks ago. So thank you, Corey, for all your help with this. We really, really appreciate it. And thank you, Mayor and Council, for all of your help with that and the town. So I guess if there are any, I guess the ask is for people.
Well, thank you, Deborah, for coming in and doing that presentation so that people understand that the reach that PALS has, not just in the priority neighborhoods of the city, but also across the entire region, including a significant presence here in Grand Bay-Westfield. And
Yes.
that ask for, for person power is important, because that's how, we know as a town that's one of the ways that we get some really important work done, and that's important as well. If people wanted to volunteer, what is the method? Do they go to the website? Do they call your office?
You could, I believe on the information that I sent you, you'll see my email. That's the best way to do it, because what I do is, as I'll talk to when it's, I'll reach out to school, and as I'm going to, and get a list, all right, for the new school year. But right now, if somebody says, look, I'd like to get in place and get that, get my clearances done and all of that sort of thing, reach out anytime, and I'm usually pretty quick, unless I'm doing derby stuff. At this time of year, I'm usually pretty quick about getting back to you. But, we could talk about ways that you could be involved, and yeah, so there's a second part to that. If you know of any businesses or groups within the area who you think might be interested in working with a school. When we partner a business or a group with a school, they're not there to do everything for the school. They're there to help out, like the schools come up with a list of how they could use help. and a potential partner would look at it and say, this is a fit for us, and this is a fit for us. And then we try to find somebody else to do the other things.
And Council, do we have any questions for Deborah? Councillor
When's the
Bellman?
first derby?
No, so the Derby is on the 3rd of June. It's Saturday and it's on Cranston Avenue, and it is so much fun. Like, I'm so excited about it. It's just, June the 3rd, yes, you should come on and cheer on
It's the
on
first
your
one since
teams.
2019, so that's pretty exciting.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
And I have to say, I've only recently moved away from Bay-Westfield, and it was the most welcoming community. I love it. I miss it. I like where I am, but I really miss being out here.
We need you to come back.
Yeah, yes. And I was introduced to the community in 2013, if you'll remember 2013, in December. There was an ice storm, and my first week here, I had no power.
Yes, no, we all, I think we all remember that. Wish we didn't have to.
And I stayed.
Do you have any other questions for Deborah? I just want to thank you for coming. We really appreciate the work that you do for the children of the community and for our schools all across the region. And we'll spread the word and hopefully get you some more of that people power. And I would like to enjoy the Derby on the 3rd.
Yes, you'll have to come over. Bring your family. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So the motion is that the council of the town of Grand Bay-Westfield receive and file the information as presented. Do I have a motion? Thank you, Deputy Mayor Toole. Do I have a second? Councillor Burke, thank you. Any questions or comments on the motion? There being none, all in favor? Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Thank you. Item 8, minutes of previous meetings. 8A, regular council minutes of April 24th, 2023. The motion is that the council of the town of Grand Bay-Westfield adopt the minutes of the regular meeting of April 24th, 2023 as presented. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Councillor Balcom. Do I have a second? Thank you, Councillor Murphy. Any questions or comments on the motion? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Thank you. Item 9, unfinished business. There being none, we'll move on to item 10, bylaws. Second reading by summary of the following Town of Grand Bay-Westfield bylaw. 10A, animal control bylaw. And I will pass that over to the CAO to speak on the item.
Thank you, Your Worship. Anna's spending a fair bit of time on here because I got some late information this morning. As you can tell from the exchange with the planner, became aware of some issues surrounding breeders and whatnot. However, I think we have a way forward on that. I've also made just a couple of non-substantive edits to the bylaw. I'm just trying to dig them up here. One is that in section 16(7), the proposed animal control officer, and as she does currently, will take the dogs directly to the SPCA. And then the owner keeper, as it is now, is responsible for all costs incurred. So if the dog is defleed, the dog is neutered, if the dog gets the shots, all that will be the cost of the owner. And then further, there will be a fine. So just want to encourage people, get your dog tagged. $15 is a lot less money than all these other prospective fees. And then if you go down to subsection 8 of section 16, if owner, keeper doesn't claim the dog within 72 hours, what happens then is that the dog becomes the property of the St. John SPCA Animal Rescue. So the SPCA is open 7 days a week. It's not open for adoption 7 days a week, but if you want to claim your dog, you phone them and you book an appointment. So again, a lot of headaches can be avoided by just going in and coming in and purchasing a dog tag. As I indicated in the report, we've made substantive changes. The issue around feral cats cannot be managed through the bylaw. Well, it can be, but it's pretty drastic. So what we're proposing, and the communications manager has already set this up, an education campaign, and there's some resources on the town's website if there's a feral cat colony. So what happens with feral cats is that one of Karma, Helping Hearts Cat Rescue, or Redhead Strays Helping Stay Cat Strut, it's a bit of a mouthful, call them, they'll trap the cat will be neutered, it will also have a health inspection and some shots, they're checked for the feline version of AIDS and then also leukemia. The feline version of AIDS, not much different from the human version. It's contracted through the transmission of blood, so if you get a cat fight, something like that. Leukemia is a different issue. That's transmitted just through the sharing of a water dish or water. But anyway, so they're all checked for health. And then if you have a feral cat colony around you, what the vet will do is dock the ear. So if you see a cat that looks like it's had one ear cut, it may be missing. The two vets that do it, they have different styles of cutting the ear, but that's how you identify a feral cat that's been spayed or neutered, had shots and stuff like that. So after all that is done, the cats then return to the colony. And there are 3 colonies in Grand Bay-Westfield. I don't remember them offhand. Brandy Point, up on, are you guys up Beverly Hills? Yeah, up Valley View. And I don't remember where the other one is right now. Let's see if I can find it quickly in my notes. There is a huge colony out at the landfill, which isn't necessarily a bad thing out there. If I, Brandy Point, and then, I can't read my writing, Your Worship, my apologies. Anyways, Brandy Point, past Beverly Hills, and then something that starts with a T and then a C. But the last one, they think that they've got them all fixed on that colony, so that may be an issue. Maybe 12 years down the road, it'll be less of an issue out there. They also came up with some things that people can do to discourage cats. I don't know if it's in everybody's pocketbook, but the suggestion is that people purchase sensor motions and then attach sprinklers to the sensor motion so that anytime the sensor motion is set off, usually a feral cat, the cats will get wet and that'll discourage them from coming back to the yard. I know other people use fences and screens and stuff like that as well. So that's the what we've done for feral cats.
So, just a second, so I'll just open it up for questions and then we'll go through the rest of it. So Councillor Bellman?
Do you base it on Brandy Point Road or Brandy Crescent?
Brandy Crescent.
Okay, clarify.
Okay, any questions or comments on this version of the bylaw?
We're in the right direction.
Yeah, that's what it's done. So are we moving in the right direction? Councillor Burpee?
I just have one question regarding the number of cats or dogs a family has if it's already over the limit.
Grandfathered in, I guess.
Okay.
We're not, we'll be more strict going forward that, like three's the limit, not 5, not 6, unless you're a breeder.
Right.
And then, you have to go and work with the province on that. And if someone's a breeder, that license is $250 to be renewed annually. And there's inspections in place for that too.
Okay. Thank you.
Councillor Bellman?
If your cat has, if your boy cat, girl cat have babies, they have about 6 or 7 in a litter, what do you do then? It's more than
For
3
feral
cats.
cats?
Just 3, well, you have to have the litter, you have to wait till a certain age to give them out to the hair.
Well, no, the definition clearly states that a dog's not a dog until it's 6 months of age.
Okay.
And then
Cat.
sick cats, I think it's around the same.
Okay.
So, yeah, so some, my dog accidentally has pups, I have 6 months to get rid of them.
Okay, there we go, so clarify that, that's good.
Deputy Mayor Chu?
I just, I know it's really long, but
Sorry?
I know it is quite long and it's a tough one to get through. I know we need it. And I think part of the reason why it's long is because some of the stuff from the zoning bylaw is being pulled and put here, so I understand that. But just a clarification, there's no changes to like the current zoning with chickens and that sort of, it's just coming out of one bylaw and putting into here.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah, no, as Jennifer said, we're looking for, synchronicity or alignment, whatever word you wanna use. We're not changing those rules. We do know, because a lot of these, are rules that meet the standard regulations provided by the province. And that's something that we've heard from Ward 1 consistently. They don't wanna lose their horses, they don't wanna lose their goats.
Yeah.
We're not changing the regulations. All we're doing is incorporating it into theoretically, a user-friendly document. Because right now, we have the dog control bylaw, but then if you wanna know about all these other animals, you have to go to an entirely different document. It's in one document now, that's where the ease comes for. It doesn't make it better reading, but it's in one spot now. If we can use that user-friendly.
Yeah. Okay, I think, and you mentioned already that it's going on with the communications officer for some of the information, but that might be a key piece too, just the bits that people, 90% of this most people don't need to know about, but there's a few key pieces that are good to let people know about, the licenses, the limits on pets, things they might not be aware of or changes. I think we can make it user-friendly just by pointing those out.
Yeah,
I do like some of the
actually,
changes from last version.
actually, the communications manager is making notes behind your back.
It's on it.
Thanks.
We have a new team.
Councillor,
What's the difference between pets and animals, or for chickens and cats and dogs, what's the difference then? Like they have turkeys, have 10
It's
turkeys.
about domestication. There are some animals that can live inside your home. Most people don't bring turkeys and chickens and,
They walk our streets though.
that's not in your house.
those are feral
The
turkeys.
feral chickens,
They're
the
feral.
feral turkeys.
Yeah. So you can see if they're fixed if their ears are clipped, right?
Okay.
So we have any other direction for staff on the bylaw before we go ahead and do the second reading?
So we're on the right track. I do wanna check to make sure that we've defined a cat. I think we may have missed that one, but other than that, we're good to bring this back for a third reading then?
We can make changes up to third reading, there's all these little.
That's right.
That's right, yes. Yeah, and it'll go out again for, public consultation. So which is important. And I would encourage people to make sure that they take a look at this bylaw in between second and third reading. This is your opportunity to, to take a look at it and let us know what you're thinking. Deputy Mayor?
Reminded me, it's gone out for public comment, but we haven't gotten any comments, right? Okay, so just wanna make, that's.
Yeah, of all the bylaws we've done, we've received this many.
This is an important one, a lot of people.
Yes, yeah.
It impacts a lot of people.
Yeah, and I would encourage council also to make sure to push that out to your networks and for all of the bylaws and in particular the municipal plan bylaw amendment. It's I would like to see more engagement from the public than we're seeing. These are important documents. So. Okay, so A, animal control bylaw. Motion is that the council of the town of Grand Bay read by summary the animal control bylaw PS-003. Do I have a motion? Thank you, Councillor Berkey. Do I have a second? Thank you, Councillor Balcom. Any questions or comments on the motion? There being none, all in favor? Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Thank you. And we are on 10B. Third readings by title and enactment of the following Town of Grand Bay-Westfield bylaws. And we have the 10B, the ride sharing bylaw. And it's my understanding, John, that there's been no changes between second and third reading here.
No changes. I just provided council with a recent TJ article about Carrie from PEI possibly setting up shop here. Envision St. John, after they're contacted me for a copy of our bylaw. And I do know that Chris Pam's bylaw is very much, I sent them ours.
All right, so Third reading by title, bylaw number GG-005 respecting ride sharing. The motion is that the Council of the Town of Grand Bay-Westfield adopt by title and enactment the ride sharing bylaw GG-005. Do I have a motion? Thank you, Deputy Mayor Toole. Do I have a second? Thank you, Councillor Berkey. Any questions or comments on the motion? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion is carried, thank you. 10C, curfew bylaw, third reading by title. And John, were there any significant changes to this, or it's the way it was for second? For
No
curfew?
changes.
Bylaw number GG-012 respecting curfew. The motion is that the Council of the Town of Grand Bay-Westfield adopt by title and enactment the curfew bylaw GG-012, a bylaw to repeal bylaw number 4 respecting curfew in the Town of Grand Bay-Westfield. Do I have a motion? Deputy Mayor Toole, do I have a second? Thank you, Councillor Malcolm. Any questions or comments on the motion? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Thank you, Council. Only 3 bylaws. It seems like a light evening.
Sorry, we'll try to do better.
Good. 11, new business recommendations. 11A, banking services agreement. The motion is that the Council of the Town of Grand Bay-Westfield authorize the Mayor and the Chief Financial Officer to sign the cash management and payment services agreement from Scotiabank. Do I have a motion? Thank you, Councillor Bellmans. Do I have a second? Thank you, Councillor Burpee. And John, could you speak to the motion, please?
Thank you, Your Worship. We've been using Scotiabank for years. We need to renew the contract. We're just proposing 2 years at this time. Our CFO has been able to negotiate better rates and better fee structure, especially as we move towards a lot more digital banking than what traditionally we've done.
Do you have any questions or comments on the motion? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion is carried, thank you. I just want to commend our CFO and our CEO and all of the supporting staff on moving this forward. Our financial situation has been quite professionalized over the last little while, and it's I know it wasn't an easy job, so I know James isn't here to hear that, but we do appreciate the work he's been doing. 11B, bursary policy. The motion is that the Council of the Town of Grand Bay-Westfield approve the bursary policy as presented for immediate effect. Do I have a motion? Thank you, Councillor Burpee. Do I have a second? Thank you, Deputy Mayor Toole. John, please speak to the motion, please.
I'm going to turn it over to the Recreation Program Coordinator, Your Worship, but fundamentally, all that has been done is he's codified what the practice has been.
Yeah, thank you, John. And I don't think it needs to be much more complicated than that. I think there's always been a standard that the town has followed for bursaries. Very limited policy, I believe, did exist with 3 or 4 sentences, and so we're just trying to make sure it's very clear how we go through the eligibility. The recent increase by town council from $500 to $1,000, but also not restricting that minimum. So if we decide to budget because of inflation and cost to attend post-secondary school, increasing for everybody, that can be done within the budget and not having to come back for a policy change. But it does set a minimum of $2,000 and $1,000 per bursary.
So I would just like to point out to Council, a significant change that was incorporated is that the student is graduating high school and they apply before their 21st birthday as of June 30th, I think. Before, it seemed to be only someone who immediately graduated high school. Some students may travel or work for a year before going back to school. That's the major change. Another change that we considered, we just open it up to students and it doesn't matter where they go to school. Personally, that's where I guess members of the leadership team fell, but historically that's not been the practice, but we just, as I said earlier, codified it, but that may be something council wants to consider.
Thank you. Council, do we have any questions or comments on the policy business? I don't see any, so if there are no further questions or comments, all in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Thank you, Rick, for your work on this. It's nice to have these standard operating procedures and policies in place to guide the work that we have to do. 11C, sign grant application. The motion is that the council of the town of Grand Bay-Westfield approve a sign grant up to $1,000 based on 50% of eligible costs for fascia and freestanding pylon signage for the Cannabis Express business, Christopher Jones applicant, to be located at 441 Woolstoke Drive. Do I have a motion?
So,
Thank you, Councillor Bellmans. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Councillor Balcom. John, can you speak to the motion, please?
Your worship, this is a long-standing grant that the town has, and it's limited to $1,000 or 50%. I'll ask David if there's anything he wants to add to that.
It started in 2016 and it's for any new or existing businesses. The applicant can apply once a year. So this is a project. They've got 4 signs that they're proposing. As long as once they've done the work, they paid their bills, they send that in, then we can process the grant, 50% of what they spend up to $1,000.
Okay, thank you, David. Do we have any questions or comments on the motion? There being none, all in favor?
aye.
Contrary minded? Motion is carried, thank you. Item 11D, hearing of objections, date selection. The motion is that the council of the town of Grand Bay-Westfield establish the date of June 12th, 2023 as the date for a hearing of objections for proposed draft bylaw number PD-008, amendments to the municipal plan bylaw number 121 and 121A, and draft bylaw number PD-009, amendments to the zoning bylaw number 122, 122A, and 122B, to be held in the Grand Bay Room, 609 River Valley Drive at 7:30 p.m. and to refer the draft bylaw number PD-008 and draft bylaw number, PD-009 to the Planning Advisory Committee for written views and recommendations to council. Do I have a motion? Thank you, Deputy Mayor Toole. Do I have a second? Thank you, Councillor Burpee, and John, you making a motion?
No, I'm not, your worship. There's a couple I could make, I guess. No, I guess I just want to clarify, council usually starts at 7 o'clock. Do we want to set aside 7:30? Or is this a holdover from previous public meetings?
No, it's a requirement of the community.
7:30? No, 7:30.
Oh, I see.
Wait. Yeah, I think we should change that to 7 o'clock, your worship.
So does council object to changing the 7:30 to 7 o'clock? This is in reference to the presentation that we had by Jennifer Dillon earlier today with respect to the municipal plan and zoning bylaw amendments that have to be done due to local governance reform. John, do you have anything you want to add to that? Any questions or comments from council? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion is carried, thank you. 11E, appointment to Planning Advisory Committee. The motion is that the council of the town of Grand Bay-Westfield appoint Mr. Darrell Short to the position of member of the Planning Advisory Committee effective June 1st, 2023. We have a motion. Councillor Burpee, we have a second. Councillor Balcom, thank you. John, can you speak to the motion, please?
Your worship, in council, we had 2 applications, and our development officer is recommending Mr. Short. Let the development officer speak to that.
Both applicants were very good resumes and they had support from members of the public in their application. The Darrell's application just highlights his past education involved with urban and rural planning, so it's a good fit. And also this career in engineering, construction, various different parts of the country and different types of construction, so it's a big fit.
Okay, thank you, David. Do we have any questions or comments on the motion? There being none, all in favor? Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Thank you. I'd like to congratulate and thank Mr. Short for his commitment to the town, and I would also like to thank the other applicants as well for putting their names forward. As we talked about earlier with Deborah in the PAL's presentation, our volunteers are the backbone of some of the work that we do here, and I really appreciate that people took the time to put their applications together. So thank you to both of the applicants. 11F, road improvement tenders. The motion is that the Council of the Town of Grand Bay-Westfield award the 2023 Capital Street Improvements 2023 to Galbraith Construction Limited, subject to the removal of work on Onanet Road from the original tender package. Do I have a motion? Thank you, Councillor Burpee. Do I have a second? Thank you, Deputy Mayor Toole. John, can you speak to the motion, please?
We have another year in which construction costs have significantly exceeded expectations and estimates. The increase is so much, Your Worship, that we have to entirely delete one project. And so the project that was selected, La Croix Drive and Prosser Court, which are on the north side of the town, felt that based on the condition assessment, these are the roads that, or especially La Croix Drive, really need to get the work done, and the other one can wait. But Your Worship, we just do not have the fiscal capacity to keep up with the increase in costs, especially with asphalt.
Okay, thank you, John. I know in our report that the closest tender was 160%
Yes.
over budget.
Yeah.
That's a huge number. Do we have any questions or comments from council? Okay, there being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Oh, sorry, I'm sorry, who had their hand up? John?
Yeah, sorry, Your Worship. I just want to say, Your Worship, that, and for our viewers at home, this has been a significant year with a lot of pressures on the town. And projects like this, we wish we could do them all. We wish we could do more on River Valley and Narrapus, but everything's right out of whack. And it's going to take us a while to get caught up. Inflation has been extraordinary.
Yes, and I just want to highlight too that it's not just Grand Bay-Westfield.
No.
It's the impacts are being seen, all over the region, the province and the country. So it's an unfortunate reality that we have to face. So all in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Thank you. Item 11G, community grants. The motion is that the Council of the Town of Grand Bay-Westfield award the community grants as follows. Royal Canadian Legion Peace Park Path Project for $1,000. River Valley Middle School Field Paint Project for $450. RVMS Home and School Association Outdoor Basketball Net Project for $500. Grand Bay-Westfield Pickleball Association Net Project for $1,000. St. Augustine's Garden Committee Public Garden Project for $1,000. High School Grad Banners Committee Project for $500. PAL's Soapbox Derby Committee Car Support Project for $1,000. Inglewood School Little Free Library Project for $500. Do I have a motion? Thank you, Deputy Mayor Toole. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Councillor Balcom. John, could you speak to the motion, please?
Thank you, Your Worship. For the first time, we had a community grants committee consisting of the community vitality chair, Councillor McIntosh Lawrence, member of the public, and our recreation program coordinator, go through and use our matrix to determine who's eligible and who's not, and I'll turn it over to him from here.
Thank you, John, and I do want to say thank you to member of the public, Daniel Timmons, for sitting on the committee, reviewing the 14 applications and then attending an in-person meeting to help go through the selection process. We did have 14 applications, but I think it's important for everyone to understand that through the new approved criteria, 5 of those applications were deemed ineligible for consideration. 2 of them were school-based projects with no community access available. 2 were worship sites with no community access available. And 1 application was received from a town-funded partner who has an existing funding agreement in place. And so that particular application will be reviewed through a separate path. So the other 9 applications, when reviewed, they were ranked and scored. And the only one that was not receiving funding is the Brilliant Labs project that was already approved by council. It was a value in kind request. And the committee felt, given the other 8 projects that were there, and that council had previously approved that project to proceed without community grants, that we could continue with a value in kind contribution towards that program until the end of June. That program actually has had less of a financial impact than we anticipated because of the amount of activity in the Centrum on the same night, including council meetings. So we're not necessarily absorbing the kind of impact costs that we might have anticipated because they're running in conjunction with other meetings. So then you can see the 8 that were approved based on those criteria, and we will be happy to inform the 8 recipients tomorrow. I think I saw it across the list.
That's great, and just for anybody that's watching, this is the first time that we've gone to a higher dollar amount per resident for, for the grant, so it's nice that we're able to make a bigger impact with that. Do we have any questions or comments on the motion? Deputy Mayor Toole?
Just a quick comment, I was really happy to see it go through that matrix in the committee. I'm much more, I know we've seen these before, but I'm much more comfortable. I love that it's gone through the process, and it's a good news story. These are great grants, they're good amounts of money out there, so really good projects. So bravo to the committee for doing this and following that process.
Yeah. Any other questions or comments? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Thank you, council, and I want to echo Rick's comment. Thank you to Danielle Timmons for sitting on that committee and devoting her time, to going through all the applications. And congratulations to all the successful applicants. Item 12, bills for payment. The motion is that the council of the town of Grand Bay-Westfield authorize the May 8, 2023 bills for payment as presented in the amount for $1,648,839.55. Do I have a motion? Thank you, Councillor Bellmans. Do I have a second? Thank you, Councillor Burpee. Any questions or comments on the motion?
It's a big one. Number 30, Toro more mowers. Then we have rentals. How many mowers do we get for 30?
So we got a 48-inch stand-up mower, and then I think it's 56-inch zero-turn radius mower. That's because we're taking on more parks duty.
So we need 2 mowers for that price?
Yes. 13 for the stand-up and 16 for the
I think it was 13.50 and then tax.
Yes. So it's all part of the taking over control of some of those things, and the councillor may have noticed that we had a bunch of students whacking grass today, so.
See them all parked at our dinner time, so they're abandoned.
So all our students are on board now. We're still waiting for our MBA student who's scheduled to start May 23rd.
It's nice to see that. Those are all things that would have been contracted out in the past, and now we have control over level of service and the types of things that we're able to do, so. Any other questions, Councillor Bell?
I have 3, I'll do them sequentially. Number 8, AVL, the big one, $891,000. Just what types of equipment did we get in that package? How many units, and just confirm we went through our due diligence and we're getting a good buy.
And Councillor, yeah, so we purchased 6 different pieces of equipment, And I'll let the Works Commissioner outline which ones those are, but before he does, I'd just like to point out that our bills for payment is over 1.6 million, about 1.3 million of that. We're swallowing fleet equipment, we're swallowing a building, and then separately is a truck, a loader, wonky big loader, to load up the trucks. So 1.5-ish out of 1.6, you can go down and touch it. So I'll turn over the details over to the Works Commissioner.
So yeah, so for those bills coming down, again, for the trucks, there's the 2 tandem trucks. Now these trucks come with a plow and spreaders, so they're complete snow, because they are the AVL equipment that we purchased them. So they've seen the trucks, but now that there are. So there's 2 tandem trucks, 2 single axle trucks, and 2 one-tons. As far as the vehicles coming through, now that would be in conjunction with our own fleet that we already have, with our dump truck and our backhoe and our tractors that's coming through. So that should set us up well for snow removal next fall. And then I guess I'm gonna go ahead with your next bill going down through, which was for the buildings. So again, with the AVL, we purchased their trailer that they operated out of, and they had a metal shop where they did the repairs on the vehicles in the wintertime, so we actually purchased that, which came with the tools. So it's already set up in there. So that was, I guess, part of your second bill coming down through. And then the other one that we mentioned was a third bill for the loader, so that we can load the solid material into the trucks in the winter when we plow snow.
So we're ready to take on the snow. Good.
Just not today, we don't want
No,
the
no.
snow.
Thank you very much, Your Worship, to the Works Commissioner. And the next item is number 18, City of St. John Fire, expense of $8,665 for dispatch services. I don't know what that dispatch service is, if maybe the chief could, or
So
yourself.
I'll turn it over to the chief, but this is a regular occurrence.
Yeah, so this is a quarterly payment for the dispatch services through the 911 center. We don't pay for the 911 portion, that covered through your phone bills. I forget what it is now, it's around $1 or somewhere. Like I said, every phone that pays for 911 service, but the actual dispatching, so that notifying us of the call, tracking all of our information, making calls out to other agencies for assistance if we need it, those types of things, that's all part of the dispatch side. In our region, well, throughout the province now, there's regional fire dispatch, which is all based, everyone in the region is funded through the same formula, which similar to a lot of the regional services, which is all assessment based. So there's a portion of the assessment, we divide that by 4 to get these 40 payments.
Thank you. And finally, number 27, the Fundy Region Service Commission, environmental development bill of $5,403. Is that an annual payment, quarterly payment, monthly payment?
It's a monthly payment.
A monthly payment. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Malcolm. Do you have any other questions or comments on the motion? There being none, all in favor? Contrary minded? Motion is carried, thank you. I just wanna say thank you to council for always going, so, I don't know if the member of the public knows, but part of our kit, we get, a big long list of the bills for payment and what they're for. And so your councilors are going through all of these and picking out things that, to ask questions about, and I wanna thank you for always doing that. It's, it's important that we know what's going through, and, it helps the accountability and the transparency of this council and what we're doing, so thank you for that. Then we're on to item 13, consent agenda. 13A, council Q1 report. B, council Q1 strategic report. C, PEC minutes, April 3rd, 2023. D, building permit report, April 2023. E, Westfield and District Recreation Association thank you letter. End consent agenda. The motion is that the council of the town of Bay-Westfield receive and file the consent agenda items for May 8th, 2023. Do I have a motion? Thank you, Councillor Murphy. Do I have a second? Thank you, Deputy Mayor Toole. Any question or comments on the motion? There being none, all in favor?
Right.
Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Thank you.
I was just gonna say, Your Worship, to your point prior to this motion about the reading, just for people to know who may be watching. This weekend, council read over 550 pages of reports and documentation and stuff like that. It's not a small piece of work that councillors do between Friday and today.
But yeah, thanks for pointing that out, and I know that you know, it's often not just read once, it's often read multiple times. So it's a lot of work and it's a commitment, so thank you to council for always doing that for the benefit of the people that we serve. So let's move on to item 14, council reports. We'll start with Deputy Mayor Toole.
Well, I had the pleasure of getting a taste, I guess, of the mayor's busy schedule for a week. I had to help out with a few meetings, so some highlights of what I was able to help with over the last little while is I attended an Envision St. John Mayor's Luncheon, where Envision St. John puts this on, I believe it's monthly, Your Worship, but where they provide some information and bring the mayors from the region together. It's a great initiative, and we got to get a taste of their data dashboard, the Envision St. John dashboard. And if you go into the Envision St. John website, I believe a lot of it's out there for the public, which tells quite a bit about information from census and things about our region. It's really, really interesting, and they've got a lot of data there for us. So that was great. I also had the pleasure of meeting with Speaker Oliver and Minister Holland. We did a tour of the Lone Water Fountain facility with some town staff, and that was excellent, just to see what the amenities that are within our town and some ideas floating around there. And another one I did, I guess the final highlight would be I attended on the mayor's behalf as her alternate, the Regional Service Commission meeting for the region, which again is an extremely important group put together with the new local governance reform group, which brings all the region together to talk about major issues. And that was a really, they're long and they're detailed, and they're a lot of work, those meetings. It's amazing that you have to do them that often, but they're very good, and it was quite nice to be there, and just to let everybody know that there's a lot of work that goes in there. It's amazing. Like there's the learning curve going on, and I know there's different committees out of that main group, and it's a big one. So that was kind of my bit for the last few weeks.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Bailmans.
We had a meeting last Wednesday of the last month, and talked about some fundraisers coming up. We got 5 fundraisers coming. June 10th starts, and last one August 26th. So it is all geared up here, so I'll tell our communication officer will want to be on the board or communicate something out there. So that's all for now.
All right, thank you, Councillor Bailmans. Councillor Balcom.
Thank you, Your Worship. Last Monday, I attended a PAC meeting and in these chambers, and I'm pleased to report that the PAC recommended the approval of a variance request from a member of the public for the construction of yet another new construction in our wonderful town, a combination of commercial and much needed apartments. So that was a nice meeting to be at, a good result. Last Wednesday, I attended a TD Harbour Station board meeting with the new general manager, who was now an employee not of Harbour Station Commission, but actually of the firm whose name escapes me right now, that we, as the council, I should say, the Harbour Station Commission accepted there. And the forecast for this coming year thus far is looking good for events, and I'll be pleased to present more information for the next meeting. And finally, also with the Deputy Mayor, I attended the tour of Lone Water Farm with Mr. Holland and also Speaker Oliver. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Balcom. Councillor Day.
Well, it's Emergency Preparedness Week, and I'd like to thank everyone out there who has been involved and continues to be involved in emergency preparedness. I'm in the middle of in a town in Alberta where there's 101 wildfires, 31 out of control. We have one fire above us and one fire below us, and I am so thankful that I have been involved with EMO for years, because it's not a panic, You're being told when you need to evacuate, and being prepared is crucial. And we've got floods, but we've not had a fire for a very, very long time. And the impact to children who don't necessarily understand getting ready, and trying to explain to them that we're only doing it in case we have to evacuate. And it's really in a different aspect for us. So say your prayers for Alberta. We're expecting a heat dome. That's the first time I've ever heard of a heat dome. But on the weekend, we're expected to go up to high 20s to low 30s. And with the wind picking up and everything else, they're expecting more fires. So it's rather interesting scenario. And following the fire, the one above us was 18 kilometers close to us. And the one below, I don't know how many kilometers. All I know is that from the map that I've got, it's close enough, thank you. So emergency preparedness is so vital to our community, and people need to have an action plan ready. We sat down, my sister-in-law and I, and made one up of what we needed and what we had to get ready, including food for the dogs. And it's the little things that you need, and it's the little things that you forget in a panic. So if you've got a checklist and you're ready, you're okay to go. So thank you, EMO, and thank you for the volunteers in our community.
Thank you, Councillor Day. Councillor Murphy.
So, a little bit lighter schedule than the other councillors. Last week I attended the Road Valley Middle School Variety Show, so congratulations to them. It was very entertaining, and there's a lot of talent in that school, so I really enjoyed that. Also, along the Britain Road, we're continuing to pick up garbage in the ditches. And please don't throw out your coffee cups on your way home. There's, excuse me, a lot of coffee cups and face masks that we're picking up. So just a little reminder there. And that's all for me.
Thank you, Councillor Murphy. As always, I want to thank the councillors for all the work they do on behalf of the community. And in particular, I want to thank Deputy Mayor Toole for filling in for me. My council report's really light tonight because I've been off my feet for a couple of weeks recovering from the surgery. So I've just apparently been sending too many emails, but but I haven't been able to attend as many things as I normally would. So thank you to the Deputy Mayor for filling in. When you go to the Regional Service Commission, it's a bit of a big lift because there's a lot of briefing that has to be done beforehand, so that council is kept very informed anyway, but there's specific items that you need extra briefing on, and so it took a lot of time out of our workday. So I really want to thank you for doing that for me, Mayor. I really appreciate it. So I'm back. Well, I'm back on one foot anyway. So I expect to be picking up my regular schedule here very soon. So I'll have a much more robust report for you the next time that I am before everybody. So with that, we will move on to item 15, which is business arising from committee of the whole. There being none, we will move on to item 16, which is adjournment. The motion is that the council of the town of Grand Bay-Westfield adjourn the meeting at 8:28 p.m. Do I have a motion? Thank you, Councillor Murphy. Do I have a second? Thank you, Deputy Mayor Toole. All in favor? Contrary minded? The motion is carried. Thank you, council. Thank you, staff, and thank you everyone who joined us this evening.